So good Shabbos, everyone. It's great to see all of you here this evening as we celebrate Shabbat, and of course, we get ready to celebrate a New Year's, a Sugar Bowl victory for the Texas Longhorns Monday night. Let's hope. I don't think we have any UW fans here, so I'm very safe saying that. And of course, as we approach a new year, it's easy as Jews and lovers of Israel to feel down. Every day, Israeli soldiers are being killed, fighting as brave Zionists for the survival of the state of Israel. And every day when I open up one of the Israeli websites and I see a brave Israeli soldier who's been killed fighting, it breaks my heart. Those of you who know Israeli soldiers you met before, you read their stories. These are incredible young men in the prime of their lives, defending the state. We lose too many. Of course, anti-Semitism we know is up, whether it's college campuses or in the press, the streets of LA or New York. It's depressing when we see, if anything, anti-Semitism should be down, but it's up. And of course, we can turn on most news stations or read our own Houston Chronicle, and we immediately see the double standard that Israel's held to, whether it's the editorials or the headlines. The headlines that are blatantly anti-Israel, that grab your attention for the average reader and are slanted against the state of Israel. And no other country in the world is held to such a standard. No other media outlets report countries that do much horrible things. Not that Israel is doing anything awful. Israel's simply trying to survive and fight for its very existence, and yet the headlines are depressing as well. The headlines and the stories are reported, and as hard as 2023 has been for us as Jews, the depressing fact here at the beginning of my sermon is to tell you, as you probably know, 2024 could be even worse. The fight against Hamas, as difficult as it is, I'm afraid, could turn into more. As Israeli officials said this past week, Israel is now fighting on 7 fronts. There are terrorisms and terrorists surrounding Israel, all supported by the state of Iran. And Hamas is considered minor leaguers compared to the major leaguers of Hezbollah in the north. And I'm afraid that the Hezbollah fighters don't move back past the Litani River that they agreed to back in 2006, 40 kilometers from the border of the state of Israel in Lebanon, which is now controlled by Hezbollah. I'm afraid Israel will have to do what they're doing in Gaza now, safeguard the state. And as difficult as this war is, 2024, if we fight Hezbollah on the north, could be much worse. So it can be depressing for us as Jews. It's been a very difficult several months. And maybe like you, I've had a hard time not thinking about October 7th every single day, about how it's changed our lives as Jews, as lovers of Israel, for the rest of our lives. It's given us a whole new perspective of how the world is working, the anti-bias that's out there against Israel and against us. And I realize we're in a whole new ball game, and we have a big fight ahead. As it said, none of us wanted this fight, but sometimes the fight is brought to us. And I'm confident that we as members of this congregation, lovers of Zion and the state of Israel, will be there for the fight. But it can be depressing as we get ready for a new year. Could this new year be even more challenging? And so this past Sunday morning, as our Christian friends were preparing to celebrate the holiday of Christmas, I wanted to take some time out of my Sunday wishing my Christian friends, as they were getting ready for Christmas Eve, to wish them a Merry Christmas. To my Christian friends that I grew up with in Dallas, to my Christian neighbors, and of course, some of the friends I've made in the Christian world at churches throughout the city of Houston, other pastors and priests. And I texted my good friend, Dr. Roger Patterson. Some of you may know him. He's a senior pastor of West University Baptist and Cross Point Church. Roger is an incredible man. He is not only a wonderful pastor and one of the leading pastors in the city of Houston, but he's also an incredible coach. He coached all my kids in Little League Baseball and soccer. And let me tell you, to have the patience for my kids and other kids in the Bel Air area, he was terrific. And so we became good friends in those early years when our children were both young. And I want to share some of our text exchange from this past Sunday afternoon. I said, Roger, have a wonderful and Merry Christmas. All the best from your friend Brian. He responded, thanks, brother. I appreciate you. Praying for y'all. Thank you, I said. We need it right now. And then he responded with the following. He said, Brian, maybe this will help you. I love these verses from Psalm 34. And the verses that he texted me are the following. It says, the angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. O fear the Lord, you his saints. For those who believe and fear in God lack nothing. Yet sometimes I need a reminder from one of my Christian colleagues that we Jews will survive and have always survived and always overcome any challenge that we have faced because of our faith in God. Yet too often do you and I forget that fact. Why is that? Why is it that survey after survey show that our Christian friends and neighbors are far more likely than Jews in America to say they believe in God? Why is that? You see it often. You have friends at work, Christian neighbors, who openly profess their belief in God. They talk about it. They're comfortable with it. But how often do you see non-Orthodox Jews, members here, outwardly professing our love of God, saying that we have faith, that God will deliver for us? Why do our Christian friends have such an easier time expressing their faith in God and having a belief that God will ultimately be there for them? Is it our history of persecution? Is it the fact that we've been through many, many trials and tribulations throughout the centuries, including today? Is it our tradition's insistence on questioning? Yes, we Jews are supposed to question, but I often remind people we can question, and we're supposed to question how God works in this world, why there is evil that exists. But we're not supposed to question if there is a God. The term Yisrael, when Jacob's name is changed to Yisrael, it means to struggle with God. That's why we're called Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. We're supposed to struggle with God, challenge God, ask God, question God, but not question if there is a God. But do we get confused by the idea that we Jews like to question? And do we sometimes question if there's even a God? And do we conservative Jews want our Orthodox friends to be the one to express that faith publicly? Leave it up to our more religious Jewish friends and neighbors. Maybe that explains recent surveys that say that 93% of Orthodox Jews in America say they believe in the God of the Bible, compared with just 37% of conservative Jews, 18% of Reform Jews, and 12% of Jews with no denomination. 93% versus 37%. Why is that the case? We come to shul. We belong to a congregation like ours, a traditional conservative congregation. We raise our children here. We love our Judaism. But do we love God? Do we talk about God? Do we express our faith in God? Do we believe in God? Why is that the case, that we Jews have a harder time believing? Is it a combination of all these reasons I've expressed tonight or more? Why is that the case? Here is one of my goals for the new year. Not only to be reminded that we have more friends than enemies. Yes, times are difficult, but think about all the people that have come to you, that have texted you, that have said to you, I'm thinking of you. I know times are tough for you and for the state of Israel, but I'm there for you. Maybe there hasn't been enough, but I know that many people have reached out to me, and I've seen the news. I've spoken to other Christian colleagues that are leading solidarity missions from their churches right now to the state of Israel, who are texting me and calling me and saying, Brian, we're praying for you and the people of Israel. There are so many people in this country and in the world who do love Israel, that do understand what we're up against, that are our friends. This is not 1939, and God forbid it ever becomes. This is 2023. And our great-great-great-great-grandparents, if they could have traded what they had with what we have, they gladly would have jumped at the chance. They never would have believed that we have a Jewish state that, yes, is under fire right now, but can defend itself. They never would have believed that the most powerful country in the world, that the world has ever known, is solidly behind the state of Israel. And despite the protests that we see, surveys show that a majority of Americans still support the state of Israel. It's not as strong as we would like, certainly among younger Americans. We have work to do. And I'll address that many times in the future, believe me. But we have more friends than enemies. And let us also remember that having faith in God, when we come to services, expressing that faith, whether it's through song led by our cantor, whether it's through your private prayers when you open up the prayer book, it's okay to question, to push God, to ask why this has happened again to us. But let us try to reinforce our faith that God is still there. This past week on a family vacation, my father-in-law, who's one always to push and have a good time with me, said, "Brian, how can I still believe in God after what happened after October 7th? How can you believe in God still?" I told him, how can I not? The fact that we Jews are even here, that we're still here, that the covenant is strong, that Brit, that covenant that God made with Abraham 4,000 years ago, still exists today. The fact that there are thriving congregations such as ours, day schools that are growing, and a strong state of Israel. How can I not believe that God is still there? And yes, I too question why these things happened, why October 7th happened, why too many young, innocent Israelis were murdered, why babies are still being held in Gaza. Let us question, let us push God, but let us not give up our hopes and faith that eventually we will overcome. Dr. Roger Patterson reminded me that we are far from being alone. And no matter how many friends we have, we can always increase our faith in God, especially right now. Because I do have faith that God will ensure that we and our beloved state of Israel will survive. Shabbat Shalom.